How long should your newsletter be? Well, in this video, we're going to take a look at how long should it be, your newsletter. So let's start. So it's still an interesting question that I see when people are starting their newsletter, right? I think that's very common when you're starting out a newsletter is you want to know how long should my newsletter really be, right? And honestly, there's no right answer, right? It could be really short or it could be really long, right? So the right length is just whatever keeps people reading and coming back next week. I know it's not really a straight answer of how long a newsletter should be, right? But here's what I've learned after writing newsletters for a while. So if you're sending short emails like 150 to 300 words, that's perfect for quick lessons, thoughts, or little stories, or content curation, right? Where you find interesting links of other content that people have produced, right? You can send these most often, and people actually read them because they're just so easy to digest. Like, I remember building a newsletter that like shared one interesting thing. That's it, right? And it was very popular because it was every day I sent it, and because it was very short, right? So I only shared one thing. It could be like 2 lines, and that's it. Right? And so yeah, and people actually like read and click it. It had a high click through rate as well. So heck, there's even minimalist newsletter I've been reading. I think now for over a year that is so short, right? And it has 3 sections. 3 sections. That's how short this newsletter is, right? So this is an example of the newsletter. Right? That's it, right? It's called the Minimalist Hustle newsletter, right? So the creator, right? He shares one thing from himself, right, that he created, and then something from somebody else, and then from one of his sponsors, right? And that's it, right? Super simple, right? You just click on it, and it takes you to a different page, right? That's his newsletter, right? And very popular. So, and then you have the medium. I'm going to move this. And then you've got the medium length emails, around 400 to 700 words, right? So that's like my personal sweet spot. When it was my newsletters about newsletters, that was like about the word count that I would usually send per week, right? You've got enough room to tell a story, share a lesson, right? Takeaway, and plug something at the end without losing attention, right? I think a lot of popular newsletters are like this length, right? They're not too long, but they're also not too short. They're just right, right? And then there's like the long form, 1,000 words or more, right? So those only work if your content is so good, like really good, right? Like there's a newsletter I subscribe to that I don't even read the whole thing, even though their content's really good. It's just a lot of reading, right? And so those type of newsletters are usually like deep dives, right? So where somebody breaks down how somebody, let's say, grew their newsletter or how they grew on LinkedIn or X, right? Case studies or stories that keep people hooked from start to finish, right? If it's just fluff, right, people drop off halfway through, and so yeah, so you have to make it really, really good, right? And that's why it's kind of harder to write those long form content because like you have to keep them like hooked on every word, right? So here's the truth. It's not about how long your newsletter, right? It's about how good it is. I gotta fix this. It's about how good it is, right? So every sentence needs to keep the reader hooked for the next sentence, right? You could write 200 words or 2,000 and still win, right? But as long as you get them hooked, right? Like if you lose them halfway through, then they're not going to probably check you out again, right? So yeah. But if you're rambling or trying to fill space, people will tune out no matter what, right? Like, I mean, and that's human nature. So yeah. So my advice, right, is just start short, right? You don't have to start this short if you don't want to. You can start like 400, 700 words where you share one lesson, right? One thing that you learned, one takeaway, right? It doesn't have to be too much, right? Focus on delivering value in as few words as possible, right? Once people start replying or asking for more, then you go deeper, right? That's where you like if people start asking you, hey, can you like I really like this, but it's really short, then that's like your like I guess like cue that okay, I need to step it up and like people want more, so provide more content, right? And so at the end of the day, right, your newsletter shouldn't feel like a newsletter, if that makes sense, right? It should feel like a message from a friend that just happens to teach you something valuable, right? That's the beautiful thing about email, right? If you do it right, it feels like you're not really writing a newsletter, but you're just letting somebody know about something really cool or interesting that you learned, right? And you want them to check it out, right? That's how it kind of should be feel a newsletter and not really too salesy. So that's pretty much it on how long a newsletter should be. I know it's not really a straight answer, right? But hopefully you'll have a good starting point of like how long a newsletter could be, right? But again, it all depends on you as well as the creator, right? And also your audience too, right? So that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.